Good morning.
Welcome to Emmaus Road. We are super excited to be with you. Thank you so much for joining us on this Sunday morning. We've got a great service in store. I'm Daisy.
And I'm Jake.
And firstly, to kick us off, we're going to show you an Alpha video. So our Alpha course has just started. So if you'd like to get involved, here's a little bit about Alpha.
There are still loads of slots available at Alpha. You're very welcome to join us now. There is already people online as well in Alpha. I think there's like 10 people, so you wouldn't be on your own. So you can come in person or online for that, so that's very exciting. In the week we've got, for students, if you're a student, there's the student meal, the student feast.
Yeah, sounds great, doesn't it?
It does sound very good, yeah. That's starting 7 p.m. In the Founders Studio in Guildford. Obviously, if you're not a student, you can't make it, but I'm sure you can have your own feast if you want. And yeah, just before we go into worship, let's just have a little time of prayer. So Lord, just thank you for today. Thank you that you are good. We just pray that you would speak to us this morning through the talk and through the worship that we're about to hear. Amen.
Again, who you are. All things are possible. God of the miracle, will let your kingdom come. We pray for heaven today. Your kingdom to reign always. Here on earth as in heaven. Here on earth as in heaven. You give us all we need. Forgive to reign always, here on earth as in heaven, here on earth as in heaven, here on earth as in heaven.
You have poured out grace. You brought me out of darkness. You filled me with peace. Blessed Redeemer, you have set this captive free. Lord, I can't help but sing. Are yes and amen. All your promises are yes and amen. Beautiful Savior, you have brought me near. From the ashes, you have broken every curse. Blessed Redeemer, you have set this captive free. Lord, I can't help but sing. Are yes and amen. All your promises are yes and amen. Oh, faithful you are, faithful forever you will be, faithful you are yes and amen. All your promises are yes and amen. And I will rest in your promises. My confidence is your faithfulness. I will rest in your promises. My confidence is your faithfulness. I will rest in your promises. My confidence is your faithfulness. Oh, I will rest in your promises. My confidence is your faithfulness. Oh, faithful. promises are yes and amen.
Amazing. So this morning we have the executive pastor of Emmaus, Adam Heather, coming to speak to us today, which is going to be great. And we are going to be talking about Mission Sunday.
So it's very exciting, and you may not know, but the church is growing, and we are across 3 plants, so we have 3 different locations, and it's hard if you're a part of one to know actually what's going on in the life of the church. So to help with that, we've got a little video so that you can see what's been going on.
Well, good morning. It's so lovely to be with you again. My name's Adam. I'm the executive pastor here at Emmaus Road. Just lovely to see that video. Just Emmaus, we are a growing church. There's just life happening all over the place, and you are a part of that. So thank you for tuning in online, wherever you come from. It's great to have you on the journey with us. Today is Mission Sunday, which is a really special Sunday in the life of Emmaus. We have these two kind of special Sundays, these times in the year. The first one is in April, which we call Vision Sunday, and it's a chance where we come, we listen to the Lord together, we share what we feel like He is saying for us as a church, the vision for the year. And we as a church family bring our offerings to the Lord to place at the altar. And then about 6 months later, which is around now, September, October time, we have Mission Sunday, which is a chance for us to kind of update on where we are against the vision, to bring our offerings again, to realign against the mission of the church. And so this morning, you're going to hear a little bit around what's happening in the life of the church. You're going to hear a little bit about some new missional opportunities that we have. And we're going to make space to bring. We believe that the Bible talks about bringing tithes, these kind of weekly donations, and then these special offerings to the Lord for our vision as a church. And so really excited to be with you this morning. But if you have a Bible there, why don't you turn to one of the lesser talked about miracles of Jesus, and we'll come to why I think that is a little bit later, but it's in Matthew 15, and it starts in verse 29, and it's called the feeding of the 4,000. The feeding of the 4,000, not to be confused with the feeding of the 5,000 that happened a little earlier. But starting at verse 29, it will come up on the screen, it says this: Jesus left there, and he went along the Sea of Galilee. Then he went up a mountainside and he sat down. Great crowds came to him, bringing the lame, the blind, the crippled, the mute, and many others, and laid them at his feet, and he healed them. The people were amazed when they saw the mute speaking, the cripple made well, the lame walking, and the blind seeing, and they praised the God of Israel. Jesus called his disciples to him and said, I have compassion for these people. They have already been with me for 3 days and have nothing to eat. I do not want to send them away hungry, or they may collapse on the way. His disciples answered, where could we get enough bread in this remote place to feed such a crowd? Well, how many loaves do you have? Jesus asked. 7, they replied, and a few small fish. He told the crowd to sit down on the ground. Then he took the 7 loaves and the fish, and when he had given thanks, he broke them and he gave them to the disciples, and they in turn to the people. They all ate and were satisfied. Afterward, the disciples picked up the 7 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. The number of those who ate were 4,000 men, besides women and children. After Jesus had sent the crowd away, he got into the boat and went to the vicinity of Magadan. And so I feel like in this story, as I was preparing today, there's a few keys that I feel like the Lord is wanting to remind us of on Vision Sunday. And for the first of those, I want to tell you a little story. On Sunday, between 5 and 6 p.m, my wife and I, with our little 3-year-old, we do a pretty fun thing. We get our Sainsbury's supermarket delivery arrive. Okay, it's a pretty rock and roll thing about adulthood. You get to plan your delivery of food. And so every day between 5 and 6, that arrives. And so last Sunday, get a knock on the door, and our little 3-year-old, Thea, what's funny is that she doesn't see it as a delivery. She sees it a little bit more like Christmas. So as we go out and we bring in all of these crates of food, she runs up to me and she's like, yeah, Dad, he brought strawberries. And I'm like, that's amazing. And then he'll be like, oh, wow, Dad, he brought my favourite ice lollies. And she just receives everything as a gift. But as part of the latest Sainsbury's initiative or marketing or whatever, they're doing these little hero cards, these little packs. And if you spend, I think it's £10, you get 1 pack. And so we'd spent, I don't know, on the weekly shop, something like £70. And so he bought 7 packs and they were sitting in one of the bottom of these crates. And so Thea grabbed them. She said, Dad, he's brought me cards. And I said, that's amazing. Let's go and say thank you to him. So while Hannah carried on unloading the crates, we went out to the front door and the Sainsbury's delivery man was stood there, you know, just twiddling his thumbs. So we went up there and Thea, little 3-year-old, walked up and went, thank you for my cards. And he looked at her and he went, would you like some more? And he reached into his pocket and he clearly had all of the cards that no one else on his delivery run had wanted. And he just gave her this huge wodge of cards. And so she ended up with all of these packs. And it was because she chose to give thanks, right? She chose to give thanks. And so there is something in this story that hits me every time. And it is the power of thanksgiving. The miracle, the feeding of the 5,000, the one just before this, but very similar, is the only miracle of Jesus that turns up in every single one of the Gospels. Every single one, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. For some reason, this story was the one that every single writer believed was fundamentally important for the story of Jesus. But interestingly, every single writer makes this point in saying that when Jesus had received this little boy's lunch, these few loaves and this small fish, he chose to give thanks. Every single writer makes that point, that before the miracle happens, Jesus gives thanks for something that clearly was nowhere near enough for the need that was in front of him. But Jesus chose to give thanks. The economy of the kingdom of God is that giving thanks is always the route to increase. And one thing I realised as I stood there, shut the door, and my 3-year-old had all of these packs of cards in her hand. She doesn't know who half of the characters are because they're way too old for her. But she stood there like overjoyed because she'd said thank you to this man. I realised that the Spirit of the Lord whispered to me, like, Adam, how is your Thanksgiving? And I realised that over the last couple of years, with all of the problems, all of the questions, all of the concerns, that spiritual discipline, that muscle of thanksgiving is one that I have let slip. And I'd like to suggest that maybe a lot of us have. But actually, it's the kingdom is always that thanksgiving is what positions us for increase. And so for us here at Emmaus on Mission Sunday, if you were at family business meeting last Saturday, you would have heard some of the really exciting things that are happening in the life of the church. In April, Pete shared the vision that we carried into this year. It was this vision of having this storehouse of hope, this abundance that the Lord has given us, that he was calling us to give out to those in our area who need it most. And we talked around these 5 things, A, B, C, D, and E. We wrote them on our hand, which I realised I probably should have done, but I didn't. But at the time, we wrote A, B, C, D, and E on our fingers as a way to remind us. And they stood for action, belonging, communications, discipleship, and evangelism. And now 6 months on, we've been amazed about what the Lord has done in the area of belonging, which was this sense of bringing the church back together. When we checked last week, we have had 315 adults filling Get Connected cards since the beginning of the pandemic. 315. We've had 85 young people added to the database. It's phenomenal. Within our under 18s work, we have 90 youth on a Sunday and 87 youth in collectives across the Emmaus family. Within our kind of below youth, the kids groups, we have 156 kids engaging with kids work on a Sunday in our 3 locations. And we've added in this HQ, this way in which we realised that during the pandemic, one of the hardest ways to connect with kids was via this online. You know, it's just a hard way for them to connect with church. And so we wanted to come back in and really prioritise them. So we planted HQ as a way to start off every service in a way that they felt valued and could be discipled. And I received this email from someone. I just wanted to read it to you because it was so good. It said, by way of a very brief introduction, my family's involvement with Emmaus Road started during the first lockdown. The small village church of which we were a part in Liphook wasn't able to resource anything of real substance for children and young people. And my wife and I therefore started to look for churches our kids could connect with that weren't too far from where we lived. Fast forward to today. And the impact of Emmaus on our kids' lives, as well as on ours, has been incredible. They've led Bible studies in their collectives, had powerful experiences of the Holy Spirit on a youth weekend away, and understood the whole idea of church in an immensely powerful and authentic way. It's just so brilliant to see a church of people who are following him with such passion, obedience, and dedication. It's this sense of the fact that we're aware that as a bigger church, we have a storehouse of hope that the Lord is asking us to steward, to provide for people. And I love stories like that where we're able to do just that. Within action, the A, which was all to do with our social outreach work, particularly through the Lighthouse headed up by Eric and Rebecca, who you're going to be hearing a little bit from later. There's been all sorts going on. I'm going to show you a picture now, and actually recently, that's the lighthouse there. A lot of you would have visited it. Well, the building that you can see just towards the camera there is number 11, and the landlord owns both, but that was previously occupied. Well, the people using that have now left, and he's offered for the lighthouse to expand into that space for free. And so the team were there this week renovating it. The plan is in December to start using that. And we heard that the government had been forced to close a lot of its Sure Start centres, caring for young families and young mums. And so that space is going to become somewhere where young mums, young families can come and get the support, the guidance, the help, the resourcing that they need. So incredible. We've just given that for free. And then moving on, there's another picture coming up. This is the Barnsbury Lighthouse that started again during lockdown. Barnsbury is an estate just across from Hoe Valley where the Woking congregation meet. And this is going to become another place. Again, we renovated it, and already we've got all sorts of people using that space. There's an amazing outreach to some of the older generation who are using that for tea and cake, being amazing. You'll see there a poster for 316, which is a youth outreach that's already happening in that space. And a story I love is that one's actually owned by the Woking Council, and they came and they offered it to us for the sum total of £1 rent for the year, £1. But apparently Woking Council like to receive their rent in quarterly instalments. So they originally asked whether or not we would be willing to give 25p per quarter for rent. After a bit of negotiation, we were willing to pay in a lump sum at the beginning of the year. And so 2 buildings, one for free, one for £1. Just this sense again of the Lord's resourcing, again, the Lord's favour upon us. But there's other areas, like a lighthouse in Guildford we're still praying for. We're not seeing the breakthrough that we wanted and we hoped for, but we know as we read this story that it's in thanksgiving, as we give thanks for what we see the Lord doing, what we have in our hands, it positions us for increase. Alpha this week, we've just come out of a long series looking at how we share the gospel. We had 40 guests come along on Alpha across our different regions and online this week. Amazing, just amazing sense of the Lord with us. But let me ask you, where in your life do you feel like you need increase? Where in your life do you feel that actually through the confusion and the pain and the heartache of the last year, thanksgiving has been something that's fallen away from your spiritual discipline? Where might the Lord be calling you back, even when all you have in your hand feels like a measly lunchbox to feed an entire crowd? But the Lord is saying, in thanksgiving, we offer what we have to God, and then we receive the increase. So that's the first Mission Sunday, thanksgiving. How do we give thanks for everything that the Lord is doing, but also give thanks in the questioning, in the confusion, as we look for the increase? Now, the second one is compassion. Right? Something interesting about this story that I've always wondered about. Just before this, in chapter 14 of Matthew, we read about the feeding of the 5,000, right? In the Gospel of John, John makes this interesting claim. He says that of everything that Jesus did, if he was to try and write it down, all of the volumes of the earth would not contain it. Right? What an audacious statement to make, that in the 3 years of his ministry, Jesus did so much that all the books on the earth could not contain all of those stories. And yet, Matthew chooses to repeat almost the exact same miracle twice. And look, I don't want to question the canon, don't want to question the Bible. But it's also interesting that, if it had have got bigger, I might have understood it. Like if he fed the 5,000 and then maybe the 20,000, maybe I'd understand. But actually, these guys were master storytellers. Like stories build, they like build to anticipation and increase. This one, don't get me wrong, it's a great miracle. But it actually goes down, right? It's the 5,000 to the 4,000. So why? With all of this source material, does Matthew feel like it's vital to tell a similar story twice? Well, actually, if you track what is happening here, Jesus, between the feeding of the 5,000 and here, the feeding of the 4,000, he's journeyed out of the Jewish territory into a place called Decapolis. Now, Decapolis, if you look it up, was the 10 cities. It was a region known as the 10 cities. Deca, 10, polis, city. It was a region of 10 cities. It was Greco-Roman. It had its own temple. It had its own finance, had its own law systems. Like it was very much Gentile territory. So what is important in this story is that where Jesus fed the 5,000, they were Jews. They were people inside the promises of God at that point. But now Jesus is faced with a crowd of Gentiles. So it's interesting, the disciples very recently have moved from part. They saw Jesus feed the 5,000. Like they've been here before. They've had loaves. They've had fishes. And yet, they seem to still not anticipate the miracle. Right? They've just seen it. Well, why? Well, I would like to suggest that I wonder if what was happening here for the disciples, it wasn't a question of Jesus' power, but it was a question of Jesus' compassion. I wonder if it wasn't they didn't believe that Jesus could do it, but maybe they were questioning whether or not Jesus would do it. Would Jesus feed the Gentiles? Would he step outside the promises of God? Was the goodness of God that expansive, that big? Because here is my point. You are never going to have faith for something that you believe sits outside of your boundaries of the goodness of God. Never. Because we can only believe that God will do something that we see fitting inside the heart of his goodness and his passion and his purposes for people. And for that reason, throughout the entire book of the Gospels and Acts, we constantly see Jesus stretching and forcing the disciples to overcome their political, cultural, and socio-economic boundaries. He's always expanding their paradigm of the goodness of God until eventually the whole world falls inside. And we see that. I don't know if you noticed it, but if you read back over the 5,000, it talks about these 12 baskets of leftovers that get collected. 12 baskets, the 12 tribes of Israel, that sense that the whole of Israel had come in. Well, did you notice how many baskets got collected in the feeding of the 4,000 with the Gentiles? 7. The number of completeness, of wholeness, of perfection. Even in the basketfuls of leftovers, it's proclaiming the fact that perfection is coming, that wholeness is coming, that the whole world is coming in to receive the bread of life that is Jesus himself. And I love what Jesus says. What he says is, I am unwilling to let them go away hungry. I am unwilling. On this Mission Sunday, I'd like to ask you, what are you unwilling to let happen? And how can that unwillingness, born out of compassion, beckon in the power of God? I am unwilling to send them away. Mission Sunday is a place where we, as a church, get to step back in line with the compassion at the heart of Jesus. We get to position our faith and our resources, our prayers, our offerings, our availability to respond to that compassion. And one of the ways, one of the unwillingness of Emmaus last year at Christmas was that we knew, even in a weird Christmas, when all the rules were changing and at the last minute, Boris, for lots of people living here in Surrey, just changed the rules and we didn't get to see our friends and family. Even amidst all of those questions, Emmaus still said that we are unwilling to let those in the greatest need on our doorstep go without. And so we ran a huge initiative called Christmas Kindness. And in a minute, I'm going to ask Eric and Rebecca Jesperson, who oversee, they're the directors of social transformation here at Emmaus. They're going to tell you a little bit more about Christmas kindness. But we're going to relaunch that today, and we're going to take an offering. And it's our way of responding to the compassion of Jesus. Christmas kindness is a place where we get to offer to those who would go without Christmas. And if you've never seen, you've never participated in Christmas kindness, you're new to Emmaus, then instead of me telling you about it, take a look at this.
Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. Let every heart prepare him room, and heaven and nature sing. And heaven and nature sing. We will sing joy. We will sing joy. We will sing joy. Joy to the world. He rules the world with truth and grace, and makes the nations prove the glories of his righteousness and wonders of his love. And wonders of his love. We will sing joy. We will sing joy. We will sing joy. Joy to the world. We will sing joy. We will sing joy. Joy to the world.
Hello.
Hello, morning.
Good morning. So Christmas, for many of us, can be one of the most special times of the year, full of fun and celebration, friends and family. And for others, it can be one of the most toughest times of the year. Those of us who are lonely, isolated, who are unwell or struggling with mental health, those experiencing financial crisis or loss of employment, or relationship breakdown or loss of family. And during these times of need and suffering, we can find those popular symbols of Christmas simply painful reminders of what isn't. And at Emmaus Road, our heart is to reach out to those who find Christmas a really tough time. Our Christmas Kindness campaign seeks to love through bringing just little comfort and cheer. And we do that for hundreds and hundreds of people across Surrey with essentials and treats, things like gift parcels for children in families where they would wake up on Christmas morning and there'd be no presents, and care packages for adults who have no one to bless them with a gift on a Christmas morning, and food parcels for people who have very little to eat. And we also plan to deliver hampers to places like hospitals and care homes, and we'll be distributing Christmas dinners that people can simply pop in the oven and have and enjoy on Christmas Day. And in fact, on Christmas Day at the Lighthouse, we'll be hosting a Christmas brunch for those who might be alone on that day. And we take great care and attention to do all of these things really beautifully with great kindness, from the choice of the gifts that we buy, to the way that we package them, to the way that we prepare the spaces where people receive them.
Yeah, that's right. And one of the key elements in that whole Christmas kindness thing that Rebecca mentioned is the children's gift packs that we deliver through our Jigsaw team. They organise the whole thing in response to referrals from agencies working with families in need on the front lines. And in those packs, we give brand new toys and pajamas and lovely treats for the children. We give it to the parents so that the parents can wrap them up and have the joy of giving it to their kids, and they get to unwrap something on Christmas Day. Last year, Jigsaw gave out over 450 of these packs. And we want to do that again this year, but even bigger. And a bit like when we do the Back to School campaign in July and August, we did events in Aldershot and Guildford and Woking, where the families could come in, receive those packs and have a bit of fun. And so we're going to be doing that this Christmas as well across all 3 towns. Now, each of those packs costs about £25. And our hope this year is that we could fund every single referral that we receive from those agencies across Guildford and Woking and Aldershot. And by way of example, just this week we opened our referral system, inviting the agencies to send in referrals, and we've already had 92 referrals from just one agency in Guildford. So the need out there is significant, and we would love to be able to respond to that. So we're asking you this morning, please help us respond with God's generosity this Christmas. Now, of course, if the generosity multiplies in the way that Adam was talking about, and we find ourselves with loads more than we even need for this campaign, then the funds can be allocated to some of the other social action things that we're doing. But please join us this morning in doing that. Now, I know when we talk about Christmas in October, you might think, yeah, I'll do something a bit closer to Christmas. And we do find that many people sort of get that generosity bug, start thinking about others right before Christmas. But we actually need the funds now in October. This is a key month for us because by the end of October, we have set the limits of we know what we have, and then we decide what we're doing. Then in early November, we set our caps for referrals we can receive. We place all the bulk orders of items. We liaise with all those frontline organizations, and by the end of November, it's pretty much done. And that's because we like to give the parcels out to families in early December. What that does, the reason for that, is it gives those families the peace to be able to go into Christmas knowing that that's sorted. They don't have that anxiety through December worrying about what they'll do on Christmas Day. So please, would you think carefully right now about how you can give today? And let's do something really, really wonderful together this Christmas.
So we just thought to finish, it'd be good to give you a little tiny glimpse into the impact of Christmas kindness just through some feedback that we've received from last year. We had one mother who wrote to us, I'm overwhelmed that there are people out there who care so much. This has been the toughest year. I had no idea how I was going to afford anything for my children. You are like my guardian angels. I'm crying tears of joy. And then another parent who said, no words can express how grateful I am. Again, I'm in floods of tears. All the worry and anxiety over Christmas and how I'm going to afford anything has gone. Thanks to you, special people.
Wow. Incredible, just in both of those, just tears of relief and joy. It can have such a powerful impact on families Yeah. So what's going to happen now is a slide is going to come up that will show you the ways to respond at this time, how to pray, how to serve, and how to give. And after that slide, we're going to go back into some worship, which will just give you time to think and to pray about, decide how you want to engage with this Christmas. So here we go.
Wow, So good to hear what's going on in church. There's a lot going on and it's amazing. I mean, Christmas kindness sounds pretty cool, doesn't it?
It does sound amazing, yeah, so good. So if you love the idea of Christmas kindness and what the guys do at the Lighthouse, and you do want to get involved in some way, obviously you can pray, you can help serve, and if you're able to, you can give financially. And if you want to know more about how you can do any of those things, then jump onto the virtual welcome desk. That'll be open after the service. There'll be a link in the kind of post roll after the service as well, so you'll be able to jump on there.
It's a Zoom link, isn't it?
It's a Zoom link,
So
yeah,
you can
absolutely.
click on and speak to someone from church.
Absolutely. And then also, if you just want to chat, maybe it's your first time, then someone will be waiting there to have a conversation with you. Or if you want prayer for anything as well, then you're more than welcome to jump in there, and there'll be someone there to pray too.
Yeah. I think that's everything for today.
Absolutely. We've managed to get a lot in the service. Thanks so much for joining us. You've been very, very welcome, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.